We tend to think of catastrophes as these sudden, shocking events, a single awful moment where everything goes wrong. But what if that's not really how it works? What if the biggest disasters aren't a single event at all, but the last domino to fall in a very long, very predictable line?
On June 24, 2021, 98 people went to sleep in their homes and never woke up. Their condo building, the Champlain Towers South in Surfside, Florida, just collapsed. It was an unimaginable failure. So you have to ask yourself, how on earth does something like this happen?
Well, this quote from the Miami Herald's investigation really gets to the heart of it. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. 40 years of problems, design flaws, bad construction, ongoing damage, and just straight-up neglect, all lining up one after another like dominoes just waiting for a final nudge.
So, to really get a handle on this whole domino effect, we're going to zero in on the Surfside collapse. It's an absolutely heartbreaking but powerful example of how systems can slowly and silently fail, piece by piece, over decades.
The details are just chilling. It's 1:22 in the morning, and a huge section of this building just gives way, pancaking down, floor by floor, in seconds. But here's the critical takeaway. While the collapse itself was terrifyingly fast, this disaster was brewing for 40 years. We're talking about things like a flawed original design and years of water damage slowly eating away at the steel that held the whole thing up. So let's zoom out for a second, because the scary thing is, the Surfside tragedy wasn't some freak accident. The issues that brought that building down, well, they exposed these common cracks that exist in systems all over the world, whether it's construction, aviation, or even healthcare. Take a look at this. When you break down work-related deaths, a full 15% are from accidents and violence. And here's the part that should really get your attention. Every single one of those is considered preventable. These aren't just numbers on a chart. They're systemic failures with a very real human cost. And if you want to see the staggering difference a good system can make, look no further than this. 2 massive earthquakes, both 7.8 magnitude. In Japan, 0 casualties. In Turkey, over 50,000 people died. The earthquake was the same. The difference was the system, the building standards, the enforcement, the entire culture around safety.
So, what do these systemic failures actually look like?
Well, it's the same old story, time and time again. You've got weak standards, nobody enforcing the rules that do exist, teams not talking to each other, and, this is a big one, a culture where saving a few bucks or finishing a week early is way more important than safety. These are the cracks that let the dominoes get set up in the first place. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because systems and blueprints don't run themselves, right? People do. And if you really want to understand why disasters happen, you absolutely have to understand the human element, our own psychology.
Let's just pause and ask a pretty provocative question here. We spend so much time analyzing structural failures, cracks in the concrete, broken equipment, but what if the single biggest risk factor isn't in the blueprint at all, but in the personality of the person in charge?
Well, it turns out there are certain personality traits that have a direct link to safety. On the one hand, you have higher risk traits, people who tend to resist rules, act impulsively, get distracted easily, or panic under pressure. And on the other, you have lower risk traits, people who are naturally more compliant, careful, focused, and who stay calm when things get tense. Now, this isn't about being a good or bad person, it's just about understanding our natural tendencies. And this all matters because human error is a factor in the vast majority of all workplace incidents, from a small slip and fall to a massive, catastrophic failure. So, if we can understand the personality traits that lead to those errors, we can start building systems that actually account for our humanity, instead of just hoping everyone follows the rules perfectly. Okay, let's put this theory to the test. We're going to look at how this plays out in the real world with 2 incredibly famous case studies. One is a spectacular failure, and the other, a breathtaking success. The difference between them is absolutely stunning. First up, the failure. Many of you will remember this. On January 13, 2012, the enormous Costa Concordia cruise ship hit a reef off the Italian coast and capsized. The scene was just pure chaos. When investigators dug into it, the captain was a textbook example of a high-risk personality. He was reckless. He ignored safety procedures to pull a risky stunt, he shut off the warning systems, and then, in the ultimate failure of leadership, he abandoned his own ship. The result? 32 people died, and it cost $2 billion to clean up the mess. Now, for the complete flip side. A few years earlier, January 15, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 hits a flock of birds right after takeoff from New York City and loses power in both engines. A total nightmare scenario.
But here, you see the total opposite personality at work. The pilot, Captain Sully Sullenberger, was described by everyone as calm, cool, and collected. He was poised. Under pressure you and I can't even imagine, he stayed focused, he calmly evaluated his options, and he pulled off a perfect water landing in the Hudson River. Every single person, all 155 of them, survived. Think about that. The same level of crisis, a completely different outcome, all driven by personality.
So with all this in mind, how do we actually stop these dominoes from being set up? How do we build systems and, more importantly, cultures that can withstand both structural and human failure? Well, the first thing we have to do is change how we think. We have to realize that real safety isn't about writing a thicker rulebook or having more checklists. It's about building a genuine culture of safety, where keeping people from harm is a core value, not just some box you have to tick.
And a strong safety culture has a few key ingredients. It absolutely has to start at the top, with leaders who are truly committed. It needs clear policies, safe procedures, and, this part is so important, it needs to empower every single employee to speak up about a risk without being afraid of getting in trouble. It's all about creating an environment that actually values and rewards safe choices.
And one of the newer tools that can help build this culture is personality assessments. Now, let's be really clear. This is not about screening people out of jobs. It's about understanding them. If you can identify someone who has, say, a more impulsive tendency, you can give them specific, tailored training and support to help them manage that risk. You turn a potential weakness into a self-aware strength. And at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? By combining strong, well-enforced rules with a deep understanding of the human element, we can finally make the shift from just reacting to disasters to proactively stopping the dominoes from ever falling in the first place. Because ultimately, no rulebook, no blueprint can ever account for every single possibility. But people can. People who are aware, who feel empowered, and who are part of a culture that truly puts safety above all else. So the real question is, what role will you play in building that kind of culture?